Hello, hello, Luminary. Welcome back to another teaching episode of the Savvy Luminary, where in this episode, I want to share with you all of the highlights that we have coming up for us in 2022. I know you're excited to see just what's in store. So let's take a look at what's happening in the stars coming up for us all in 2022. Welcome to the Savvy Luminary podcast, Astrology for Entrepreneurs. I'm your host, Leslie Tagorda, creator of the Astrograd method, business astrologer, brand designer, author, and Aquarius boss woman. I help visionary spiritual entrepreneurs and impact makers like you illuminate and amplify your unique star powers so you can be the luminary you were born to be. Hi, Luminary. I hope you are having a most beautiful holiday season. You know, whether you just finished celebrating Hanukkah, or you're looking forward to Christmas, or maybe you're just here to celebrate the solstice and welcoming in the change of light. Wherever you are in your spiritual practice, this is a time of celebration. And with this time of celebration comes so many obligations. But I hope that you are practicing or creating some time of stillness so that you can spend it with the ones that you love the most. I know for me, I've been talking a lot about what's coming up in 2022, and we're going to get into that. Talking to my business coach and kind of just sharing how under the gun, under pressure I am to finish and complete everything before the end of the year. Because, for an astrologer, the end of the year is super busy because we're creating all of the year-end offers, all of the forecasts for the upcoming year. I mentioned that I was writing a moon ritual book with Natalie Miller, going over all of the new and full moons of 2022. The content is just is just endless, and I'm not really taking my own medicine and just kind of slapping myself in the face because I am just like, I have no energy left. But my team and I here, we are just full speed ahead, getting ready for that next 2 weeks. But over the weekend, after last Friday's eclipse party, and if you were there, I thank you for joining me for that very special new moon ceremony, eclipse ceremony, and book birthday party. Just thank you from the bottom of my heart. It just made me so happy to celebrate with you. And after that event, I was just like so tired. I couldn't even like lift my head. And then of course it's eclipse, and that eclipse happened for me right in the 6th house. So I'm seeing all of these cues from the stars saying, Leslie, practice wellness, practice rest, practice daily routines of keeping your energy high. And I just haven't been listening to my own medicine. So this past weekend, I decided that I wasn't going to work at all, but there was still work to be had because instead of working, I replaced it with like lots of parties. On Friday night, I had a friend's birthday party, and it was so lovely to be around a lot of people and have like just kind of like almost like the first real big social event since before the pandemic. And then on Saturday night, I celebrated Hanukkah with some neighbors where I whipped up some gluten-free latkes. And I love it all, right? I think I mentioned before that my mother is Jewish, so I'm technically Jewish, although I only know some of like the highlights. I was never really raised in the religion, but I just love the culture. And then on Sunday, went to go buy our Christmas tree because yes, we celebrate all the things in our house. And as we were going to get the Christmas tree lot is about maybe about a block away. And I was like, last year when we carried the Christmas tree up a block, because we bought like a 7-foot tree or something. Last year when we carried that tree up the block, I nearly killed myself and I couldn't walk for like a few weeks after that. I think that's what it was also the eclipse season around then. And I think that's what triggered my back pain. And was so like traumatic from in 2020, that eclipse season. So I was like, we're not doing it again this year. And we're just buying the tree tonight. We're not putting up the lights. We're not decorating. We're just getting the tree on Sunday. So finally, there's a reason why I'm telling you all of this. So on Monday, I finally got all of our boxes out of storage for all of our Christmas stuff. And in the boxes, there's all of these children's stories and all of these books that my son just loves. And he seems to remember them every year and he knows which ones he likes. So when it was time to put him to bed, he's going to be about 6 years old. And so we still snuggle him and put him to bed and read him a bunch of stories. The book that he wanted to read first was this cute book that had all of these Christmas carols in them. And I was so excited that it was my turn to put my son to sleep because we got to go through these Christmas carols. And if you don't already know, if I haven't shared this with you before, or just to remind you, I love Christmas carols, and the more religious, the better. There is something about Christmas carols and the hymns and the myths and the glory to baby Jesus and the glory to God that just taps directly into my heart. Now, I mentioned that I grew up, my mom, of course, my mom was Jewish, but my grandma that raised me was Methodist, and then was born Catholic, and then she converted to Methodist, and then I was baptized Methodist. And growing up, I was surrounded by all of these different religions, but I didn't really ever find myself very religious, and I didn't really practice religion. And if you do, like, I love it. I love it. Whatever your own unique path to spirituality. And I just took kind of a more expansive approach, just kind of picking and choosing all the things that I really love from each religion. But the songs during Christmas, like Joy to the World and Oh Holy Night and Silent Night, all of these songs that praise the Lord and celebrate Jesus, I am all for it. For whatever reason, the way that I look at Jesus, and I personally believe that Jesus was a real man. Was he a saint? I don't know. that I can't answer. Was he the child of God? To me, he was the child of God, and that his words were being misrepresented, saying that he was the child of God, when really what he was saying is that we are all children of God. Wherever your stance on this is, I love everything about Christmas, and I put a metaphor on the things that get ultra religious for me, and just think of Jesus as the light that lives within us. Some people call it the Holy Spirit. I don't know what to call it. I just know that there's this spark, this love that emanates from all of us, that during the Christmas season and the high holiday season, we are celebrating this spark of light in the darkness. And so, going back to my son, as we were laying down and reading through the book, he pointed out to this picture of the three kings, and the lyrics for We Three Kings were on there. And I finally remembered this. I hadn't thought about this for so long. And I told my son when I was his age, that was my absolute favorite song. Not Jingle Bells, not Frosty the Snowman, not Rudolph the Reindeer. It was We Three Kings of Orient Are. I remember going to a Christmas party at one of my Filipino family, and our Filipino family, a small party is 50 people. And there would be these talent shows, these little made up shows where all of the kids would just get up and do some kind of unprepared show off talent thing. And I remember being around 4 or 5 years old and getting up in front of everybody and trying to sing We Three Kings of Orient Are. And I remember looking at my family's face, that they're looking at me so lovingly and so supportive, but also kind of thinking what is she singing? Why is she up there singing this old song that I guess was composed back in the 1850s or something. But I proceeded to tell my son that I loved this song, and we were starting to sing it together in bed. And I'm going to sing for you here. So I am not a professional singer. I am a clarinet player, but my favorite song, We Three Kings of Orient are, bearing gifts we travel afar, field and fountain, moor and mountain, following yonder star. Oh, star of wonder, star of night, star with royal beauty bright, westward leading, still proceeding, guide us to thy perfect light. Now, forgive my terrible singing. I am not a singer, but those words move me. And thinking back to when I was a little child and what did I love about this song? Maybe it was kind of that 6/8 rhythm, that kind of sweeping rhythm, or maybe it was about the star. I can guarantee you it was about the star because I've always just been so enamored about the star. Now, if you don't know this song of Three Kings of Orient, um, it's the story of three kings that traveled from the east following a star that scientists now believe was maybe some supernova explosion or some comet that was in the west. And so coming from the east, coming from the orient, these three different kings, they were of different colors too. I think that I was doing a little bit of research there. There was a king that was coming from the Middle East, a king that was coming from Asia, a king that was coming from Africa. And they had gifts. They were looking for this child that was born under this star. And they were bringing him gifts of gold and frankincense and myrrh, all very symbolic gifts, gold of value, frankincense of beauty, of that sensual, beautiful smell. I'm actually burning a candle right behind me of frankincense. And then myrrh, the anointment that we bless our holiest of people with. And so, as we are thinking about 2022, as we are proceeding to this royal star of wonder, what comes up for us? So, maybe this song really appealed to me. And now I think I have passed that torch to my son of like, what can the stars show us? What can the stars ignite in us? What can the stars inspire and wonder in us? Maybe there really was baby Jesus being born under that star. Maybe he was. Or maybe there was just this hope and this wonder that guided all of us. So excuse my little tangent, because I've just been really thinking about just the bigger picture and the bigger vision and the spiritual vision of what motivates us at this time of year to celebrate with our friends and our family and to overdo and overgive and overthink, but also then to look at the future. How do we kind of break that cycle and bring us into that present moment? Maybe it is singing a song with your family or your children that grounds you and places you in the moment so that all of the madness and all the things that need to get done come to a standstill. In this episode, I wanted to share the highlights of 2022 to save a little bit of my precious energy and, trying to repurpose and be a little bit more strategic about the podcast. This is a replay of the beautiful book birthday party eclipse ceremony, the portion where I went through all of 2022 in the stars. Now, I created a freebie for you, a report that goes through all of the highlights of 2022. So if you want to read through those, head on over to thesavvyluminary.com/eclipse to download your free 2022 in the stars highlights reports. Now, if you want even more, I still have on sale my 2022 In the Stars bundle editions. I have 3 editions. Now, you might be asking, okay, why am I going to pay for this edition when I can just go to astro.com and get the calendar, or there's so many other different calendars that might be a little less expensive? Why this bundle? So I've created 2022 in the stars as a strategic business tool so that you can, with mindful awareness, work with the energies of 2022 in your business instead of against it. In 2022, I'll be sharing that we are still in that unpacking phase of the Saturn square Uranus that started in 2021. It's going to peak again on December 23rd, and it's going to continue on through 2022. And I've been talking about this as innovating systems, but really we're breaking through the systems that we were born into, whether these are societal or cultural or the shoulds that we place on ourselves because we've been taught that we need to look and work and act a certain way. Now, to me, the Saturn square Uranus is about unpacking those boxes and breaking down those boxes where we've been put into boxes that don't really fit us. And I've been talking about this for a couple of episodes. So, just that reminder. And so for most of us, me included, I'm still working until I am burnt out. And that idea of working till exhaustion and keep on overdoing and overgiving, that's a system that especially is built upon women, that we are not worthy if we're not continuously working and being of service. And so this idea of burnout that's stretched to your brink and your limit is definitely an artifact of this Saturn square Uranus. And so in 2022, I want you to be aware of some of these energies that we're still working on so that we can use the stars to break out of the old systems and work with ease and flow. What does working with ease and flow mean to you? Maybe it means that you are giving yourself permission to rest, or you're giving yourself permission to not overgive, or you're giving yourself permission to distill your offerings into more potency. Maybe it's about being able to harness the stars to make more strategic decisions that allow you to launch with more profits, right? Because we're looking at our business and we think about business as money, we think about it as expertise, and how can we really be using the stars in this way? So when I write 2022 in the stars, it's coming from this approach of our work. And how do we break out of all of these rigid systems? How do we easily make more money, and how do we use our time more effectively so that we are in a state of flow instead of just overdoing it? So again, 2022 in the stars is not your average calendar. And remember that because this is a strategic business tool to prepare your 2022, this is totally tax deductible. So if you are interested, head on over to thesavvyluminary.com/2022. That is 2022, thesavvyluminary.com/2022. I have 3 different editions of these bundles. The first bundle, the Rising Edition bundle, is all you need: your PDF calendars, your full written report that goes into more details with monthly overviews, all of your moon rituals, and you also get your digital calendar. There's so many tools just in that bundle. If you up level to the Luminary bundle, which it's been such a joy to see that most people are turning to that Luminary bundle, that middle bundle, because with that bundle, you get 4 one-on-one sessions with me each quarter, and then you get your custom personalized new moon readings from me. So people are super excited about it, and I'm like, ooh, it's bringing me so much joy that that Luminary bundle is really what most people are looking for. And then if you're one of those that just wants it all, you want access to me every week via Voxer, you want one-on-one sessions, you want a full written report of your year ahead, not just like in a calendar where you have these transits and you're like, well, what does this really mean for you? I'll tell you what it means for you in your business. So if you want it all, that is the illustrious edition. So if you want the details, head on over to thesavvyluminary.com/2022 to get it all. All right, so let's hop in to the highlights. And one last thing, remember, you can get your free report at thesavvyluminary.com/eclipse. That'll give you kind of a sample of what's ahead. And remember, for these highlights, the highlights are meant to show you a bird's eye view of what we have coming up ahead in the stars. I'll be discussing in the highlights the big planetary meetups and what they mean in our business. We'll be reflecting back on some of the astrological timelines backing all the way up to 2020, because that's kind of where things started really shifting for us. So how does 2020 reflect back into 21? Then how does it guide us into 2022? I'll be sharing the outer planet ingresses. That means an ingress is when a planet moves into another zodiac sign. The personal planets, they're going around and around and around, and most of them are moving pretty quickly and going through each of the signs each year. But once we start moving from Jupiter outwards, those planets tend to move slower. So we're going to look at some of those energy shifts. I'll also be sharing the personal planet retrogrades that we have in 2022. We have 4 Mercury retrogrades, and we have a Venus retrograde and a Mars retrograde all in 2022. Remember, those retrogrades, those planets aren't exactly moving backwards. They just appear to be moving backwards from our position on Earth. And because they are personal planets, meaning close to us here on Earth, we do feel them intimately in our lives and businesses. So how do we work with those energies instead of just banging our heads against the wall? I'll be sharing the different lunations. We have a couple of eclipse seasons in 2022 and more. So I hope you enjoy 2022 in the stars highlights. And remember, this is just a sample of everything that you'll get in 2022 in the stars, all of your toolkits and your bundles written by yours truly. It's my dream for you in your work to change the world. And when you feel more control of your destiny by harnessing the powers of the stars, the more ease and flow are you going to be able to do your work into the world. And I know you are here to make a big difference. I want to be a catalyst in your ability to change the world in 2022. So enjoy 2022 in the stars highlights, pre-recorded from my book birthday party on December 3rd. So 2022 in the stars, so I just see this expansiveness. This is the year of spiritual evolution and spiritual expansion, no matter how you use spirituality in your business. Okay, so at a glance, here is our timeline for 2022. I talk about 2020 a lot, just because I feel that so many of us had kind of like fallen into astrology at a deeper level from 2020, because we're like, what the F is going on? Right? So there's so many people that came to it in 2020, and there's these ripple effects, right? Like 2020 was like this shock and awe. We're just like going, what is going on? All of these like wave after wave after wave. We're just trying to keep our heads above water. And 2020 was really an unprecedented year with all of these different planetary meetups. We had a Venus retrograde, we had a Mars retrograde, we had 3 Mercury retrogrades in 2020, but you see all of these bars right here that I'll explain a little bit later. These are all of the outer planet retrogrades. And, normally we'll feel them on a subtle level, or well, Pluto, not so subtle oftentimes. But in 2020, I should have posted this, the timeline of 2020, all of these retrogrades started and ended within like days of each other. Okay, so it's just like all of these shifts, like your whole car just like coming to a complete stop. And then eclipses that normally happen in pairs in 2020 happened in triplets. And so we were just getting slammed with all of these eclipses. We had the Mars retrograde that, kind of in Aries that foreshadowed the insurrection that happened in January of 2021. And so 2021, we were just unpacking everything that just happened, right? Because it's like after a natural disaster, there's so much cleanup to do. And in 2022, we're not done cleaning up, but now there's a glimmer of hope. The rescue packages have come. in the terms of like spirituality and intuition, giving us this big, big hug. And so the two themes that really make up 2022 are this meetup of Neptune, Jupiter and Neptune, both in Pisces. Both Jupiter and Neptune are the co-rulers of Pisces. Both share this visionary aspect, both share this beautiful spiritual aspect. And then Saturn square Uranus, it's in orb by 15 degrees. You know, we're going to have an exact meetup on the 23rd. Again, we had 3 exact meetups, but essentially these two energies are deep in orb together in a square. And talking about reviewing what I was sharing with April, you know, we all have Saturn and Uranus in our chart somewhere. It's not like we're, you know, we're devoid of it. But Saturn and Uranus collectively for all of us will be in square again in 2022. And there's one way to look at it, Saturn being the systems, Uranus being how we innovate it and how we break through. That's a collective level. So you can see more systemic issues like kind of the, you know, all of the shipping containers being stuck. You know, we might have even, you know, thinking about some more shadow things, we might have more food disruptions and things like that. But on a personal level, we're still breaking down those boxes, shattering glass ceilings. We still have some work to do there. So those are the two kind of like big events. If we go back to 2020, you know, we had the Jupiter-Pluto meetup, the Saturn-Pluto meetup, the Jupiter-Saturn meetup, like all of these things. There were like this whole timeline was just like littered with all these things. And so in 2022, we have a little bit of rest here, which is so nice. So this is kind of the highlights. So let's talk about the 2 big cosmic meetups that I've already chatted a little bit about. So Jupiter and Neptune meet. I'm so excited about this. You know, call me Pollyanna, I don't care. I'm gonna, like, my big belief system is that this world is full of love and full of hope, that there's no space for fear, okay? Like, I believe in the light, not to spiritual bypass, but because like that is what, that's our right. It's part of our rights to be a little human spirit having a human experience, right? And so Jupiter and Neptune, 2 very expansive planets, Jupiter being a social planet, Neptune being a further out planet. They're meeting up in their home sign of Pisces. Jupiter symbolizes growth and exploration, freedom and optimism, justice, philosophy, spirituality, and vision, right? On the other hand, Jupiter, when we look at the shadows, because we have to look at both aspects of it, right? Because we don't want to fall back into the overreaching and the overdoing and the dogma and the judgment that sometimes Jupiter can fall into, like April so kindly shared about her experience. You know, Jupiter, because it's so spiritual, it is, but it's more of a physical planet than a metaphysical planet like Neptune. Jupiter represents religion, represents man-made spirituality. And sometimes where religion gets off the track a little bit, instead of inspiring hope and creating community over some kind of like golden rule, then it can get into this place of controlling, where you have to live a certain way and love a certain person and do a certain thing, otherwise you're going to go to hell. Like, what is hell? Honestly, right? Like, we create our own hells, like, honestly. And so when Jupiter and then of course Neptune, we can think of it as illusion, we can think of it as magic, we can think about it as like when you go to this beautiful movie or a beautiful play or read a beautiful book, how we get transported into another universe. Somebody earlier in the chat was saying Neptune represents this like interdimensional. I talk to my clients about Neptune as being like the one love, where you can feel all the times, all the places, all the universes, all the physicalities, like everything merging into one. So I like to call Neptune one love. Now, of course, on the shadow side of Neptune, and this is where things get very, very blended, because sometimes you can't tell the shadow between the light with Neptune because it's very illusionary or disillusionary. For people that have a lot of Neptune or a lot of Pisces, sometimes they can fall into these places of addiction or fall into places of mental illness because they're so sensitive that if we are hiding or quote unquote not thinking or not wanting to think about our deep feelings, it gets too much. So we turn to gambling, we turn to drugs, we turn to alcohol, we turn to sex to run away from those feelings. And so when we have Jupiter and Neptune coming together, everything is exploding. Everything is so expansive, but we have to still bring in Saturn. Saturn is still in its home sign of Aquarius this entire year to create the boundaries, to say like, how far are we willing to expand? When is it too much? How much are we willing to feel? What will we do when it's too much? Because we don't want to run away from those feelings. Again, beliefs at the root of our feelings we need to honor, we need to encourage, we need to give voice to and give priority to, because our emotions, our feelings, they really run the ship. They will tell your body to go towards something, to run away from something, to stop from something. They're all interconnected. So we want to make sure that they are all attuned and aligned with what we want in our heart, with what we want in our soul. And so on one level, Jupiter and Neptune meet, the height, spiritual visionary expansion. You're going to see more people like us coming out of the closet, using spirituality, right? That's just, it is what it is. I mean, people have been, subjected and tortured and killed for like way less things. And of course we've been hiding. People have been telling us it's unsafe. People have been threatening us, but that's coming to the fore. And so encouraging people to trust in their intuition, to trust in their spiritual guides, and bring them as co-creators, bring them in as strategic tools in our life so that we're not spinning on our logic. Right now, the things that we need to watch out for with this Jupiter and Neptune this year are, coming back to that fanaticism. Coming back, like, will there be another insurrection? Maybe. The climate is right for it, right? And so when we're looking at these energies, we're not trying to predict the future. What we're doing is we're listening to these energies and we're saying, okay, what is this energy ripe for? How are we going to choose to work with this energy in our lives and our businesses? So I hope that we all see that Jupiter and Neptune, we are choosing to bring in spiritual, strategic, intuitive, trusting in our intuition. This is just building and climaxing. So next, Saturn in Aquarius, squaring off with Uranus and Taurus. We continue to break down our boxes. Yes, Serena, teach it. We are all here to teach this. We are here, all here like that flame, right? We're here to spark and ignite the possibilities in others. So Saturn in Aquarius, Saturn, systems, structures, but we need systems. We need structures. I like to talk about Saturn as being the beautiful trellis that a jasmine needs to grow on. If the jasmine doesn't have a trellis, it can't grow. It's just flailing all over the place. But when we create a trellis, then we can kind of give form, not control, give form to how the jasmine wants to grow. And so Saturn, our containers, our trellises, we need these containers. We don't need these tiny little boxes. You can design any container, any kind of trellis you want. Natalie does this beautiful meditation where she brings you to this box, Like, or this container, this vessel, what does that vessel look like for you? What kind of vessel, what kind of trellis will you create? Because in Aquarius, with squaring off with Uranus, the old system, that's broken. The old system, the old trellises that told us that we had to look a certain way, that we had to act a certain way, that we had to love a certain way, that we had to do a certain way, that only served the 1%, those trellises are coming down. And so we are at the brink. We're continuing to this theme. This theme has already started. So this is going to peak again in October. They're not going to meet up exactly again, but we're going to feel it. So start to notice in your life, start to notice December 23rd, this coming up in a couple of weeks when they do meet up. What for you is at the brink? What are you going to like chuck and recycle and compost and just say no to? Because we've done this. Oh, yeah. So for any of us that have fixed energy at this kind of midway point, so Aquarius, Taurus, Scorpio, and Leo, expect to have this intensity even more. Okay. Again, not to be feared, but to be embraced, because the more you fear change, the more change is going to slap you upside the head. Okay. There's a book, I can't remember what this book is. It's a children's book, but it's this beautiful illustration. And it's called Wish You More. I forget who the author is. And there's this one quote that I always say, I wish you more woohoo than whoa. Okay. So Uranus, revolution in Taurus, revolutionizing our values, our physical resources, our money. So you hear astrologers talk about more about like, digital currencies and things like that. But as kind of more intuitive people, maybe more grounded people that want to work with earth natures, earth spirits, I see Uranus and Taurus really revolutionizing, coming back to traditional ways of caring for the land and the earth, our physical resources. I see, and you can already see this. You can see so many, like having more respect towards indigenous cultures, honoring the indigenous lands and the spirits of the lands that we are creating, that we are currently inhabiting. You can see this in coming back to our own spiritual roots and resurrecting traditional ways of living and being in community. I am so excited because this is one way that a lot of people are not yet talking about Uranus in Taurus, and Uranus in Taurus is going to be in Taurus for a lot more. And so breaking down the old boxes that said, hey, traditional ways of living, what's the value in that? Coming full circle to saying there is so much value to living in traditional ways where indigenous people lived on their lands for millennia without extracting and pillaging resources. So coming back to not only us living together in community, but now co-creating together where there's not just this top-down hierarchy, but we're all working in circle together like we are doing now. To me, it's so beautiful. Energy shifts, also known as ingresses. Ingresses are when planets move into new signs, or nodes or other energies move into new signs. In 2022, we have a couple of energy shifts. Outer planets are all staying in their own signs except for Jupiter. Jupiter, kind of the outer planets, of like past the personal planets, of social planets, outer planets, Jupiter is the one that moves the quickest. It takes about 12 years to go through the zodiac. And Jupiter has been kind of interplaying, jumping between Pisces and Aquarius because of its retrograde motion. In 2022, Jupiter will leave Pisces and jump into Aries. So Jupiter moves into Pisces at the very end of this year, leaving Aquarius for the next 12 years. And then it's going to dive into Pisces and just like zip through, like on May 11th, it goes into Aries. And so in Aries, now we can take all of that inspiration and belief of Jupiter, and instead of it keeping it in just like Pisces where we're swimming in all the sparkles and the mystery and magic, now we're going to actually do something with it. We're going to pick up all of the inspiration, all of the magic, all of the spirituality that we've learned, and we're going to move it into our self direction with Aries. Aries is about wanting to be the best, wanting to be the first, wanting to get a move on. And so Jupiter and Aries to me is just going to feel really fast. It's going to feel really, really fast. And so I'm kind of looking forward about this. Momentum, forward, initiative, leadership. And so if we picked up and we kept everything that we've learned from Jupiter in Pisces and being spiritual and expansive and optimistic, then we can bring this into true leadership. So I'm super excited. Now, the things, of course, that we need to watch out for in terms of social justice and fast actingness is just to watch out about, just on a collective level, being impulsive and moving things quickly and blaming others. Oh yes, Michelle, we're all Aries. Let's get a move on. Let's get a move on with heart, with purpose. So, if Jupiter is already for Jupiter, as it's going through Pisces, is expanding and adding its love and its abundance to all of that Pisces energy. Now, when it moves into Aries, it's going to share that abundance for us that have all that Aries energy. So with Michelle, she has a ton of Aries energy. She's going to have, some abundance, some much needed optimism and love and hope and abundance. And so, yeah, we can all love Jupiter, but now Jupiter, Jupiter isn't just luck. You've all heard that you make your own luck, right? Like if you haven't been actually dedicated and working and committed to the things that are most important to you in your life, then Jupiter is going to be like, oh, okay, well, here's more of the same. So remember, Jupiter isn't just like, you won the lottery. And even if, you always hear about people who win the lottery, they can just blast through their money if they're not being really conscious. So that's Jupiter can be the lottery. What are you going to do with your winnings? Connie, yes, your stellium in Aries. Very awesome. All right. So one of the other things that Natalie was sharing with us when we were thinking about our eclipses are the nodes. So the lunar nodes are not actual physical entities, but they're calculations where the sun and the moon meet on the ecliptic. And they move in retrograde fashion. So they were on the Gemini, Sagittarius axes, and now they're moving backwards into the Taurus and Scorpio axes. Henceforth, the eclipses that we are going to encounter over the next 18th and 19 months are going to be in Taurus and Scorpio. I love how Natalie was talking about Taurus and Scorpio, about just our resources and our values personally and collectively, because Taurus is about the money in our bank. Scorpio is the money in our bank. The relationships are the collective money. And so when we move the nodes into Taurus and Scorpio, there's things that are coming up in terms of, let me see my notes because I'm slipping on what I'm on. Again, bringing into focus the physical resources. So similar to that Uranus, there's always things that are reflected multiple times. You can hear the themes that keep on coming back: resources, values, physical resources, money, bringing it all more equitably. So bringing into focus physical resources, the environment with Scorpio, more of that uncovering secrets. If we think about the modern ruler of Scorpio in Pluto, Pluto still has a few more years in Capricorn. So we are not done yet rebuilding those systems and revealing all of the terrible things that a lot of systems have built for us. So revealing secrets, coming to fruition, this idea of debts and liabilities, which, in ancient times, debts were forgiven after 7 years. They weren't being held over people for generations. And so what's going to come up? I'm curious. I don't know. The one thing that we can start to look forward to right around peaking in August is Uranus and the North Node conjunct. So Uranus in Taurus will be conjunct the North Node. And so we are, as a collective, are really being asked to hunker down on the environment and our physical resources. So if you're not already conscious and doing things about plastic consumption and things in your life and your business, this is the now or never time. Okay, so stretching into a quantum evolution. I love this. Let's talk about the retrograde planets. So all the personal planets, Mercury, Venus, and Mars, will have a retrograde cycle in 2022. So Mercury, we get 4 of them in 2022. I love Mercury retrogrades, and I hope you learn to love them as well, because they're really great times to reset. So our first Mercury retrograde in January, it's going to go through an air sign back to an earth sign. In fact, all 3 of the first retrogrades will start in an air sign, go back to an earth sign. So, we have all these ideas, but then we got to come back to practicality. So to me, I'm calling Mercury in retrograde in Aquarius to Capricorn, rethinking social impact in terms of the Aquarius and how that creates the structures and the goals that we have as a collective. Mercury retrograde in Libra to Virgo, rethinking healthy partnerships. Partnerships, you've heard me talk a lot about in 2021. Partnerships are going to be the way to go. Collaboration, start bringing in all of your inner circle and start collaborating more. Mercury retrograde in Gemini, rethinking loving communications. Oops, Taurus is missing there. Loving communications. We're going back and forth what to call this, because Taurus, again, also going back to, oh gosh, I can't remember the name. Patricia? No. Oh my gosh. I see your chart with Taurus at the IC. We did the mini reading. That energy of Taurus Gemini coming through, like how can we create these embodied, cozy, loving communications? And then lastly, Mercury retrograde in Capricorn will take us into 2023. Okay. Venus retrograde starts at the end of this year. Venus retrograde in Capricorn will end in the beginning of 2022. And what's so significant about the retrograde of Venus in Capricorn is that it's going to be playing and dancing with Pluto. And so if you're somebody who has been wanting a relationship or having needs in their relationships, there's a power dynamic that's coming through with this Venus retrograde in Capricorn, playing with Pluto. So, you might meet somebody really quickly. Don't fling yourself into that, even though the emotions could be like super, super, super intense. And if you're in a long-term relationship, start to notice patterns that come up for you maybe in the last 8 years. Even if it's not that same relationship, you might start to see some old patterns from 8 years revealing themselves with this dance with Pluto. No matter what, relationships are going to feel really intense at this time. So whatever you need to do to lift that energy. Monica said, being born in Mercury retrograde, how do I keep grounded? Yes, exactly what Natalie said. If you're born during Mercury retrograde, and a lot of us are, because Mercury is in retrograde for about 19 to 20% of the year. And so it's more about being in your body first, embodying your ability to then think, because sometimes Mercury retrograde people can't think very quickly, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like the ideas don't come flowing, but you need to use your body to be able to get understanding, because you remember Mercury rules both Gemini as well as Virgo, and Virgo is that embodiment part. And so really feeling it in your body. Ooh, Sweta, happening in your 7th house. All I can think of is like sexy times. I don't know why. I know that has nothing to do with work, but something to look forward to. Because I know Sweta has a husband, so sexy times. Anyway, so Mars retrograde in Gemini, re-energize your words, call in your people through your messaging. I know we all have to look towards some pleasure in our relationships, right? I don't know anything about that. No, I was kidding. All right. And then we have our lunations. 13 new moons in 2022. 2 eclipses. We have a partial eclipse followed by a full moon, a partial eclipse followed by a total eclipse for both the new moons as well as the full moons. And I'll have all of these dates listed for you in the report. All right. So if you wouldn't mind me just kind of sharing what I have coming up at the end of the year, if you want more of this kind of astrological insight and details, I have my year-end offer that I started last year, which I absolutely love creating. And it's called the 2022 in the Stars. These are bundles. And this year I created 3 different bundles, and the principal calendar, the digital calendar, the ebook that Natalie and I are currently writing about new moon rituals. Actually, it's the new and full moon rituals for entrepreneurs and change makers, plus a mini training, how you can find these lunar activations. So if you hear me talking about, well, this is being activated in your chart, and you're like, what the heck is Leslie talking about this time? I'm just going to use my intuition. Yes, please use your intuition. But I'll also have this mini training so that you can learn how to actually find that exact point and what's being pinged or activated in your chart. So that's the basic edition. Okay. And now if any of you all choose to purchase this edition, you will automatically be included to be an affiliate. So if you share this with your communities and your groups, you'll make $100 bonus off of each sale that somebody buys from you. So I think it's pretty generous. I wanted to make it, I just want to share the wealth and share the fun and share, like, really honestly get the star wisdom out to more people so that they can really feel strategic, like they're so strategically supported. Now, if you want more me, you want more astrology, oopsie, I skipped ahead. Then we have the Luminary edition. And so in the Luminary edition, what you'll get everything, plus you will get access to all of these new moon ceremonies, plus a monthly new moon reading from me. A mini reading similar to what I did here for our 2 raffle winners. You get your mini new moon readings, and you get quarterly one-on-one Astrobrand readings with me. And so if you've had an Astrobrand reading with me, you know how magical and how informative and how specific they are, and just to guiding the, the big milestones in your business and how to position your business, who your ideal customers are, how you're supposed to show up as a leader, what motivates you and what you need to reframe. So this is all with the Luminary edition. And then there might be some of you, I've heard from you before, like you just want it all. And this price scares me, to be honest, but I'm doing it anyway, and I'm being completely transparent. But the biggest thing about this is you get everything else that I've already talked about, plus this massive personalized business starcast. So I will write a complete report for you that has your harvest cycle for the next year, big events and how that's going to impact you, help you with some power dates so that you can launch. You'll get one-on-one sessions with me. And with the Eclipse Flash Sale, you'll actually have me on your own private Voxer channel where you get to just say, like, Leslie, what's going on? And I will be your personal astrologer for that moment. So I'm super excited because this combines everything that I freaking love, 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 love doing. And so if you are interested, head on over to the savvyluminary.com/eclipse or my website, newmooncreative.co/eclipse. If you love this podcast, please consider doing me a favor and heading over to Apple iTunes and leaving me a rating and review. Your rating and review helps this humble podcast get seen and found by more listeners like you. Please share the love.